Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome. I welcome you all to this lecture in the course Sandhi in Paninian Grammar. In this lecture, we continue studying Sandhi, the vowel Sandhi. Within that, we saw that there are two groups that can be made. The first one is called Ekasthanika Ekadesha, which means one substitute in place of one substituent. Sthani is substituent, Adesha is the substitute. There is one substituent in whose place one substitute appears. There are two instances of this type of ach sandhi. The first one is yan sandhi, stated by the sutra iko yanachi, and the second one is ayavayava sandhi, stated by the sutra echo yavayavaha. We are studying right now the yan sandhi. This ekasthanika ekadesha sandhi is diagrammatically represented in this particular form. When A is immediately followed by B, which means that A and B are in close proximity in Samhita mode, then this A gets replaced by C. Ekasthani, ekah adeshaha. One substituent, one substitute. In this environment, this type of sandhi, the two instances, they are stated in the Ashtadhyayi between 6172 and 6183, and we are studying currently the yan sandhi. We studied the sutra iko yanachi, which prescribes or describes the yan sandhi. We also studied the expanded meaning of iko yanachi by the application of anudit savarnasya cha pratyayaha, and then we noted down the environment and also the number of substituents. Now today in this lecture we shall study the examples. As we said before, it is not possible to cover all the examples of all the substituents and paranimitta combinations, but we will take all the types. We will cover all the types of environments and combinations. So now let us look at Ikarasthanika Yanadesha examples. And we have input in the form of E, and there are 12 varieties of E, Rasva and Dirgha, immediately followed by Ach, and we have already noted that even though there are 132 Ach, 54 are out of question, plutas, and then out of them 12 which are Dirgha varieties, they are removed. The Savarna varieties are removed. And so we have 66 right hand side environment sounds. Now in this input, the rule 6177 applies and gives the output in the form of ya plus ach, which are 66 vowels. The right hand side environment consists of total vowels which are 132 minus 54 pluta vowels minus 12 rasva and dirgha ikaras which are savarnas in the combinations. So we have in all 66 vowels as the right hand side environment, and in that case the output is y plus h. Let us study each one type taking a few examples. So let us look at the examples now where we have E followed by A, and after the application of 6177 the output generated is Y followed by A. In this scheme of examples we have shown the environment in red colors on the left hand side of the arrow and the sandhi in blue color on the right hand side of the arrow. So karmanya karma is the input where E is immediately followed by A, 6177 then applies, and we get the output karmanya akarma, karmanya karma. This is the famous line from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, A, which also represents its homogeneous sounds, so it can also represent the long variety of A, namely A, and so we have karmani plus atma, E followed by A, and 6177 would apply, and so we get the output karmanya atma and karmanyatma. Similarly, just as E is an uddeshya, so E also represents its homogeneous sounds. Earlier we saw A being the environment, being the uddeshya, representing its homogeneous sounds. So we had an example where A immediately followed E, and so we got the Yand Sandhi taking place. Now in this case we have long variety of E, which is represented by short E in the 14 sutras, but now even long E would become the subject of 6177, and that rule will apply on long E and will generate the output in the form of Y plus A, etc. So right now we have Nadi plus Atra, and long E is followed by A, and so 6177 applies, and we get the output in the form of Nadya Atra, Nadyatra. Similarly, Nadi Apa, where Apa is the past form of the verbal root ap, to reach. So Nadi plus Apa, and we have once again 6177 applying and getting the output in the form of Nadya plus Apa, Nadyapa. Now let us have the examples of E plus U, and 6177 applies and Y plus U is the output. Remember, after A comes the vowel E, so E plus E would be the next sequence, but we have already discussed this and said that this is the scope of application of 61101 Akassavarane Dirghaha. So those examples are not taken here. Now we have Karmani plus Utsahaha, and in this case E is immediately followed by U, and therefore E becomes Y, and so we have Karmanya Utsahaha, and we get the form Karmanyutsahaha. So this was an example with short U. Now because U is also part of the Uddeshya, the same sandhi can also happen when there is long U, like Karmani plus Urja. In this case, once again 6177 applies and E becomes Y, and we have the form Karmanya Urja and Karmanyurja. Similarly, in place of the substituent short E, we also have long E as the substituent. So Nadi Utsahasya, and 6177 applies here, and we get the output in the form of Nadya Utsahasya and Nadyutsahasya. Similarly, Nadi Urjayaha, and we get the output Nadya Urjayaha, Nadyurjayaha. Then we have an example of E plus Ru and 6177 applying and generating the output Ya plus Ru. So we have Karmani plus Richati, Richa means to go, Karmani plus Richati, and 6177 applies and substitutes Ya in place of E. So we get Karmanya Richati and Karmani Richati. Similarly, Ru represents the long variety of Ru as well. So we have Karmani Rukaraha and the output is Karmanya Rukaraha, Karmanya Ryukaraha. Similarly, Nadi Ruchati, the output is Nadya Ruchati and Nadryachati. Similarly, Nadi plus Rukaraha is the input, and by the application of 6177, the output is Nadya plus Rukaraha, Nadryukaraha. Then we have Lukara, E plus Lu, and 6177 applying and generating the output, namely Ya plus Lu. And here are two examples. We don't have the long variety of Lu, so that is not taken, and Pluta variety may not occur at this particular position, so those examples are also not taken. And there aren't many words beginning with Lu, so we have formulated an artificial word Lukara, which indicates the sound Lu, and Karmani Lukaraha, and we will get the application of 6177 and the output will be generated in the form of Karmanya Lukaraha, Karmanya Lukaraha. Similarly, Nadi Lukaraha and 6177 will apply and generate the output Nadya Lukaraha, Nadlyukaraha. This is about Lu. Then we have Ekara, E plus A and 6177 applying and generating the output in the form of Ya plus A. So we have Karmani Eva, where E is followed by A and the output generated is Karmanya Eva. And similarly, Nadi Edhate, and we have the output Nadya Edhate, Nadyedhate. Earlier it was Karmanyeva, now it is Nadyedhate. The vowel A does not have a short variety and also does not have the Pluta variety eligible for this operation. So we have only A taken for example. Then we have E plus O as an embodiment, and 6177 applies and generates the output in the form of Ya plus O. So we have Karmani plus Otam. Ota is filled, and this will trigger the operation of 6177 because E is followed by O and will generate the output in the form of Ya plus O, Karmanya Otam, Karmanyotam. Similarly, Nadi plus Okhati, Okha means to go, Nadi goes, Nadi moves, and in this case 6177 will apply and we have Nadya Okhati, Nadyokhati. The next example is E followed by I in the Samhita mode. 6177 applies and generates the output in the form of Ya followed by I. So the example is Karmani plus Aikyam, where E is followed by I, and the output is Karmanya Aikyam, Karmanyaikyam, unity in action. And then we have Nadi plus Aidhata. Aidhata is the past tense of Edha. Edha means to grow. So Nadi Aidhata. And we have the environment for the application of 6177. So it applies, and the output is Nadya plus Aidhata, Nadyaidhata. Finally, we have E followed by Au, and 6177 applies, and the generated output is Ya followed by Au. So we have Karmani plus Aushadham, and this triggers the application of Iko and then generates the output Karmanya Aushadham, and so we have Karmanya Aushadham. Similarly, Nadi Aukhat. Aukhat is the past tense of Ukha, and so we have the environment for application of 6177, and so we get the output in the form of Nadya Aukhat, Nadyaukhat. Now let us look at the next type of examples where U is the substituent. So Ukara Sthanika Yanadesha. So the input over here is U, which is of 12 types, 12 varieties, Rasva and Dirgha, followed immediately by 66 vowels, total 132, minus 54 Pluta, minus 12 combinations for Savarna Dirgha Sandhi. And so the output would be V plus the 66 vowels. And the right hand environment, as we saw just now, consists of actually 132 vowels. Amongst them, Pluta will not occur in that particular position, so they are deleted. And then 12 Rasva varieties and Dirgha varieties of U, they are also deleted, which means that there are 66 Ach which act as the right hand side environment. There are 66 Ach which are the right hand side environment. Now here are the examples. So we have U plus A in the Samhita mode, and 6177 applies, and the output generated is V plus A. So we have Astu plus Atra, and once again the environments are marked with red and the substitute is marked with blue. So Astu Atra is the input, 6177 applies, and the output is Astva Atra, Astvatra. Similarly, Astu plus Asha, in which U is followed by A, and we have seen that A being the Uddeshya also represents its own homogeneous sounds. So A is one of them, and so 6177 also applies in this case. So we have Astu Asha and Astvasha. Now as far as long U is concerned, long U, which is the homogeneous sound of short U, and so it is represented by U. This long U is put as the first member of the compound, and that example is given here. Swayambhu plus Archa. These two words are put in square brackets to indicate that this is a compound. This is a samasa, and so Samhita is Nitya over here. As far as Astu Atra or Astu Asha is concerned, Astu is a verb Atra and Asha are the other words. But Swayambhu and Archa, this is a compound. And so the output after having applied 6177 is Swayambhuva Archa, Swayambhuarcha. Similarly, Swayambhu plus Asha, and we have Swayambhuasha as the output after applying the rule 6177. Then we have the situation U plus E, U followed by E, and 6177 applies, and the output generated is V followed by E. So the examples are Astu iti, and here U gets substituted by V, and so we have Astv iti, Astviti. Similarly, Astu Ishaha, so E stands for its homogeneous sounds, namely long E. Astu Ishaha, 6177 applies, Astva Ishaha, Astvishaha. Similarly, in the compound Swayambhu Indra, and this is processed by 6177, and the output generated is Swayambhu Indra, Swayambhindra. Similarly, Swayambhu plus Isha as an input, and E is long here, which is represented by short E. Swayambhu plus Isha, and 6177 applies and generates the output in the form of Swayambhuva Isha, Swayambhvisha. Then we have U plus Ru, and 6177 applies, and the output generated is V plus Ru. So we have Astu plus Rishihi, and this is in the Samhita mode, and so 6177 applies and generates the output in the form of Astva Rishihi, Astvrushihi. Similarly, Astu Rukaraha, once again long Ru coming in as the representative of, as the homogeneous sound of short Ru. So Astu Rukaraha, and the output is Astva Rukaraha after application of 6177, and so we get the output in the form of Astvurukaraha. Similarly, Swayambhu plus Rishi, and the output is Swayambhva Rishi and Swayambhrishi. Then we have Swayambhu plus Rukaraha, long Ru, 6177 applies, and we get the output in the form of Swayambhva Rukaraha and Swayambhrukaraha. Then we have examples of U followed by Lu, and we have V followed by Lu as the output after the application of 6177. So we have Astu plus Lukaraha, and we get the output Astva Lukaraha, Astvlukaraha. Similarly, Swayambhu plus Lukaraha, and we get the form Swayambhu Lukaraha as the output after the application of 6177. Then we have next U followed by A as the input, 6177 applies, and the output is V followed by A. So the example is Astu plus Ekaha, 6177 applies and gets the output Astva plus Ekaha, that is Astvekaha. Then long U, Swayambhu plus Ekatvam, and 6177 applies, you get the output Swayambhva Ekatvam, Swayambhvekatvam. That is the output. A, O, I and O, they do not have any short variety and also not the Pluta variety, and therefore there are only limited number of examples. Then we have the next example, U plus O, 6177 applies and the output generated is V plus O. So, Astu plus Om, and so U is substituted by V, and so we get Astva plus Om, Astvom. Swayambhu, where there is long U, plus Odana, and this is a compound, and you get the output by application of 6177 in the form of Swayambhu Odana, Swayambhodana. Then we have U plus I, 6177 applies and the output generated is V plus I. The example is Astu plus Aidhata. Aidhata is the past tense of the verbal root Edha, to grow. Astu plus Aidhata, and Ukara is substituted by V by the application of 6177 and you get Astva Aidhata, Astvaidhata. And then the compound form Swayambhu plus Aikyam, long U followed by I, and 6177 applies and the output generated is Swayambhva Aikyam, Swayambhvaikyam. Then we have U followed by Au and 6177 applying and generating the output, namely V followed by Au. So, we have Astu followed by Aupagavaha and the output generated is Astva Aupagavaha, where U is substituted by V. Similarly, Swayambhu plus Aushadham and U, long U is substituted by V by the application of 6177 and so you get Swayambhva Aushadham, Swayambhvaushadham. In all these examples, we saw that in most of the cases there was some meaning connection as well, but in some cases there isn't any meaning connection at all. Only the phonetic similarity counts, and that is what matters the most as far as sandhi process is concerned. To summarize, we studied examples where vowels E and U are the substituents, and in the right hand side environment we have any vowel excluding some vowels, and then Y and V are the substitutes respectively in place of E and U. Now we study examples of other two vowels, namely R and Lu, as substituents next in the next lecture. Thank you for your attention.